Travis Reier and Charlie Potter of the BamaOnline.com staff with another edition of Instant Analysis. This one on a chilly but sunny Friday afternoon in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. We're still inside here, Coleman Coliseum, getting ready for senior night for the Alabama gymnastics team as they welcome arch rival Georgia into town, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. But got to start, Charlie, with the men's basketball team. Big game, obviously. Rival game tomorrow with Auburn coming into town. This team sitting squarely on the bubble again, it appears. And listening to Avery Johnson in there today, very much still a one game at a time type of approach. Sounded like maybe they've tried to talk about the bubble and the tournament a little bit in the past and didn't get the results they wanted, but huge game in here tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, I think after the Mississippi State game, with the attitude they had, kind of feeling like they were essentially a lock, and the way that it was progressing, you kind of felt that they had worked their way into position. But obviously, the way that ended, kind of ended that, and now they've kind of taken that Nick Saban football approach of one game at a time, like you said, and it's a big game. Like all of them are big games, but this game against Auburn, we saw Alabama go on the road and face this Auburn team in Auburn and lose. And that's a completely different team because it had Kareem Caney at the time, but now this lineup's different and it's still been decently effective, which is a little bit odd losing its best player. But it's going to be a challenge. They have a tough road ahead. Just in terms of this game, you kind of get a little bit of a let up against Arkansas, but with the way the SEC has been and the parity in that league, you never know. And then go on the road against Georgia, it's a tough road ahead, and nothing's guaranteed for this team like they thought it was before the Mississippi State loss.
Absolutely. As you said, before last Saturday, you felt like that was a game they could very easily win at home. We found out once again that while it's a great story and it's a fun team to watch, in terms of talent and the ability to separate itself from a lot of teams, it doesn't really have that. So every game's going to be a challenge, it seems like. So interesting to see what happens tomorrow afternoon. Avery did say that he felt like the team had maybe one of its best practices in a couple of months yesterday. So maybe playing on Tuesday and having a day off, maybe they got their legs back under them a little bit, because the grind of the season obviously takes its toll at some point.
Yeah, I mean, it has. I mean, Avery even mentioned how their practices haven't been, I guess, as all hands on deck. Those guys have been banged up. We've seen Shannon deal with injuries, Mike Cousins too, and you got to figure in Retton's been tired from carrying the team on his back. But, Avery and Riley Norris both said it was the best practice of the season. And Riley made a key point to say that the leaders of the team, the two co-captains in Retton and Jimmy Taylor, stepped up and really made their voices heard. And that's what you want to see whenever you come off of an embarrassing loss and a loss. Well, I guess they're both embarrassing in terms of who you lost to and in the fashion you lost to. But that's what you want to see, and if you're an Alabama fan, is this team bounce back and not give up down this final stretch.
Really talked a lot in there about balance. Need more from the other guys. Retton's averaging over 20 a game in SEC play. The next guy, Shannon Hale, down around 10. So he's averaging twice as much as the next guy. And Coleman is at 7.5, Riley around 8, 9 points a game. That's okay if you can kind of count on that production. Arthur Edwards in that mix too. But they talked about it. They really got to get it. We've said it all year, from more guys than just Retton. Retton can go for 29 like he did the other night, and you're still going to get blown out if the other guys don't really bring it.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think that Riley Norris against Mississippi State didn't even get a shot off. I mean, you can't have that. I don't think he's played very well the past 2 weeks. I think he's aware of that. These guys know that. They have to help Retton out because, since Dazon went down with an injury, it's been the Retton of Asan show. And he needs help down this final stretch if they want to get in the tournament.
Shifting gears to the NFL Combine, we saw some action earlier today in Indianapolis, some good stuff from some Alabama players, offensive linemen, and, of course, the running backs, Kenyon Drake, Derrick Henry. I'd say all in all, about what they needed to do today up there.
Yeah, I would definitely say their stocks increased. If I feel like Ryan Kelly's just skyrocketing up draft boards.
Unbelievable.
And he hasn't really done anything. He's just kind of been himself.
Yeah.
He ran a 5.03.
Yeah, right around 5 flat.
Just performed well in the
26 reps on the bench, I think.
Performed well in the on-field workouts, which you wouldn't think otherwise, and obviously killed the interview process with the media, and you'd think the teams that he met with too. And seems to be doing well and might be a first-round pick. It's not it's not something that just going into this you thought was far-fetched, but it was just kind of on the afterburners. It's really kicked in now. And I thought Kenyon Drake, I went back and forth with who I thought run the fastest 40 between Kenyon and Cyrus. And I still think Cyrus will be up there, but Kenyon really showed that that injury is no longer bothering him. At times this past season you saw that he was kind of hobbled by it. Maybe he didn't have that gear that he once had, but he seemed to be back to his old self, ran a 4.44, and performed really well.
Might be interesting with him and Keith Marshall of Georgia now, because Marshall blew up today. He did the most reps on the bench of a running back. He ran sub 4.3 or sub 4.4.
I think his official was 4.31, which that might be robbing the kid.
And they're kind of the same kind of back.
Yeah.
In terms of size and ability and how they project. So those two will be interesting to keep an eye on throughout this process. And Marshall, like Drake, has had a pretty severe injury, has a little bit of a medical history that's a concern. So comparable guys in a lot of ways. Derrick Henry, you talk about a combine super warrior, superstar. We kind of saw this coming, though. I mean, we see the guy a lot. And if you see him, you get a really good feel for what you're talking about here. But certainly lived up to it, running sub 4.55 in the 40.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of figured he would put some Julio-like numbers up when it came to the vertical and broad jump. He did. With a 37-inch vertical at 247 pounds, that's pretty remarkable. And I think it was a 10'10" broad jump. It shows what kind of explosiveness he has. And that 4.54, that's good for him at his weight, his size. I think that shows teams that even though he has that stigma that takes him a while to get going, he has that the speed, and he exhibited a lot this past season that you want on your roster.
And his 10-yard split was really good, which kind of answered some questions about his ability to get off, maybe at the snap. So good stuff from Indianapolis with the combine. Baseball this weekend, the Crimson Tide welcomes North Dakota into town. You hear the words North Dakota, and you think, oh, this is a snow school that hadn't been out much, but they went out to the West Coast last week and took 2 out of 3 from Southern California. So Mitch Gaspard's team off to a great start at 3-1, but doesn't appear as if they can take anything for granted with North Dakota coming in.
No, it'll be interesting what they do this weekend too. Gaspard's kind of been mixing up with his lineup as you would expect him to do early in the season. Be interested to see if Keith Holcomb stays at the top of the lineup. He's played really well, but I'm more interested to see if Chandler Taylor can keep this hot run going. He went 5 for 5 on Wednesday, and it's been a real spark for Alabama.
Guy's legit, and I think Kobe Vance, another true freshman, the second baseman. Go ahead and write Taylor and Vance in the middle of that lineup for the next 3 seasons at least, and feel really good about it. That's been the best news I think they've had to start the season, is that some of these freshmen that they've really been counting, are really going to count on this season, have come through. And you're right about Holcomb. Tried 3 different guys at the top of the lineup last weekend against Maryland. Stuck with Holcomb for a second straight game against Nicholls State. Nice game for him. So can the inside linebacker sort of hold down that spot at the top at 230 pounds? Runs pretty good.
Yeah, he does. I'd like to see what he ran in the 40.
He runs it pretty good. As we wind down, again, big weekend for gymnastics as they prepare for Georgia later this evening here at Coleman Coliseum. Pat Murphy's softball team, big weekend with the Bama Bash in town. Arizona, traditional power. Tennessee. That's going to be a lot of fun over at Rhodes Stadium as well. So no shortage of sporting options this weekend if you're an Alabama fan out there.
Yeah, I mean, you get a day off tomorrow when it comes to Combine, but Sunday and Monday will be pretty interesting with those defensive linemen and Reggie Ragland getting after it.
Yeah, it really should be a lot of fun to watch as the weekend goes on with the guys up in Indianapolis. And again, plenty going on here as well. So for Charlie Potter, I'm Travis Reier. Keep it right here on BamaOnline.com for more coverage of Crimson Tide athletics.